the propaganda in Europe and the US about the Ukraine war say unprovoked aggression by Russia. Nothing happened. We didn't do anything. It's so sad because these people should learn something. They should know some history. How did this start? It started because in the 1990s, in the context of the diplomacy over German reunification, the US and Germany promised Gorbachev no eastward movement of NATO.
Nicht die Absicht besteht, das NATO-Verteidigungsgebiet auszudehnen nach Osten.
Then, of course, the Soviet Union vanished. And one very important thing happened when that occurred. They wanted to get out of the 75 years of effect of the Bolshevik Revolution. They wanted to move on to something better. And what did they say to me? What did they say publicly all the time? A common space of peace and prosperity from Rotterdam to Vladivostok. They meant it. They had no means anyway to make power demands anything else. They wanted actually just normal relations. And there's an incredible debate between Kissinger and the last U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union named Jack Matlock. And the issue was about NATO expansion. And Jack Matlock says, why should we have NATO enlargement? Russia's not threatening us. It has disbanded the Warsaw Pact, which was its military alliance. Its military industrial complex is in collapse. The Russian economy, there's no threat whatsoever. And we're trying to establish normal relations after decades of Cold War. So then McNeil asks Kissinger, and Kissinger says, yes, NATO should enlarge. And McNeil is puzzled, says, why, Mr. Kissinger? Are they a threat? No. Russia's not a threat. Well, are they threatening any of their neighbors? No. Russia's not threatening any of its neighbors. But Ambassador Matlock says this would aggravate the Russians badly. And Kissinger says, well, if you can't aggravate them when they're weak, what are you going to do when they're strong?
If we are reluctant to antagonize the Russians today when they're weak, it is an illusion to think we can suddenly move in that direction when they're stronger.
And that's the American idea. Always take advantage. Why not? Instead of saying, okay, maybe we can have normal relations. They couldn't imagine that. So, of course, the U.S. cheats, as it always does, and Clinton starts saying, well, maybe there should be NATO enlargement, not taking care of any promises that were made.
The partnership invites all former Warsaw Pact and former Soviet states, plus other non-NATO members, to join in military cooperation with NATO.
They decided we're going to weaken Russia, we're going to put our military all around and make Russia fall into pieces. Said, oh, there'll be a confederation of 3 weak states, European Russia, Siberian Russia, Far East Russia, and it came in the context of NATO enlargement. It came in the context of the United States bombing Belgrade for 78 straight days to break Serbia in 2. And then in Kosovo to put the largest NATO military base in southeastern Europe, Bondesteel. So the Russians are saying, are you kidding? You bomb Belgrade, you walk out of the anti-ballistic missile treaty, you attack Iraq on completely phony pretenses, you expand NATO even though you promised not to do so, you send NATO to overthrow Gaddafi, you launch a CIA operation to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, and you say NATO's going to expand to Ukraine and to Georgia.
NATO welcomes the aspirations of Georgia and Ukraine for their membership in NATO.
You think Russia's not watching this and worried? Of course it is, because on February 21st, 2014, 3 foreign ministers of the European Union negotiated with Mr. Yanukovych that he would stay in power and that there would be elections 8 months later. And this was also agreed with President Putin. The next morning, a U.S.-backed coup violently overthrew Yanukovych.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience, and, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make.
And it took the United States a nanosecond to say, we support the new government.
Right now, Vice President Biden just spoke with Prime Minister of Ukraine to assure him that the United States supports his government's efforts and democratic future of Ukraine.
And Europe, because it's so filled with principles, said, no, Yanukovych is president. No, of course it didn't say that. It said whatever daddy said. And Europe suddenly couldn't even remember 24 hours that it had negotiated an agreement with Yanukovych that he would stay in power. And they said, no, he resigned. And Yanukovych is saying, excuse me, I didn't resign. I was thrown out in a violent coup. I'm still president. You think the Russians don't know it? Of course the Russians know it. And they say, we don't like this because this is so typical of American operations.